Hi guys, welcome back to another video. I thought it was due time for an update on the E46 coupe. Some of you who have watched previous videos know the plan is to put a VR6 in this, so I thought I'd go through kind of what's been done to it so far and just update on what the plans are. So as I mentioned, I'm going to put a VR6 in this, not one of these two bad boys because these are destined for the Corrado, but I have a VR6 patiently waiting, just sat in the corner behind those boxes. And to get that in, I'm going to mate it to a E46 ZF gearbox, which is this one here. But anyway, before I get into that, just go over the spec of the car. So it's an E46, it's not an M3, it's just a standard body, but it's had the rear M3 quarters welded on, M3 bonnet and wing mirrors, and M3 front wings and bumpers, etc. Painted Laguna Seca blue, not the greatest of paint jobs in the world, but for my purposes it's just fine, as I'm going to use this as a drift car. I'm kind of building it for competition. I'd like to enter something like Drift Cup, so I have, if I can just get in and get out of the way without falling over, fitted a safety devices bolt-in roll cage. I've added some extra reinforcements to the subframe here, and at the back there I've basically cut into the boot floor, welded in some supports, then welded back over it with a plate, so that's nice and strong at the back. And then I've cut the rear firewall. I will put some kind of aluminium firewall back in, just to cover the fuel system once that's in. Not quite sure what that's going to be yet, but we'll see. And obviously gutted of all the wiring harness, and then painted the whole thing in POR 15 white, which I think's turned out okay, consider the fact that it's brushed on, but it looks okay. Up close you can see some brush strokes in places, but overall I think it's okay. In terms of electrics, you can see a bunch of wires down there, and they're actually all VW. So what I'm doing to simplify it is I've ripped out all the BMW wiring and I've replaced it with a cut down simplified Mark III Golf VR6 harness. So that will control the small bits of body, body electronics like rear lights and heaters and stuff like that. But all nice and simple. Under the bonnet, nothing in there at the moment. Again, just painted it under there with some POR 15. Cut some of the inner arches just to give some clearance, and that's kind of it. The VR6 has been in here test fitted before, and it does clear the firewall. It does protrude into this upper section a little bit, so I just need to make a new section for that, but that's okay. No cutting of the bulkhead is required, so I think I'll still stay in regulation for any competition I want to enter. And that's kind of it, I think, in terms of spec. In terms of things like lock kits and stuff, still to be determined, and suspension, but engine wise, obviously VR6 Turbo, ZF gearbox. Yeah, so in terms of how I'm going to get the VR6 in, I have built an adapter plate, only a prototype, which works and gets it in. I've done some drawing in CAD. I've finalised the design. A good friend of mine, John, cut this out in Perspex just so I could troll fit it. 99.9% bang on. There's just a few holes that need a very slight bit of adjustment, and then that's good to make. But whilst I'm doing that, I kind of had a bit of a brainwave. The brainwave is very simply to use the factory Passat dual mass flywheel in the beginning, I might add. Now there's a bit of a backstory behind that, and the Passats I've previously bought have both been automatics, so no flywheel, just a torque converter. One being a 10 valve, one being a 20 valve, but that's kind of irrelevant at this point. So I never had that flywheel kind of here to utilize and to kind of help visualize what needed to be done in terms of the whole adapter plate and clutch configuration, etc., etc. So the plan was always to get the adapter plate, which comes on the VR5, 3D scanned, get the BMW gearbox 3D scanned, merge the two together, build the adapter plate, and then kind of figure everything else out after that. But actually having the flywheel here helps me kind of plan the next step out, if that makes sense, without having to wait for the adapter plate to be built. Hence why I bought a manual Passat, which is where this engine came from. So the plan now is to utilize the Passat gearbox, which is a manual gearbox, and by utilize I mean I've cut the front of the bell housing off, which is this section here, and then use the BMW gearbox, which I've also cut the front of the bell housing off, and then weld the Passat front to the BMW gearbox. What that then basically gives me is a kind of a gearbox which is the same overall length as the original uncut BMW gearbox, but with the Passat front end. And with that front end, I can now bolt it straight to the VW OEM adapter plate, utilize the flywheel and the starter motor, because obviously it's got the ring gear on it. I'll have to custom make a release bearing, but other than that, it's good to go. Even the engine mounts, these are the ones I made for the VR6, which was in that previously, just the mock-up version, by the way. They bolt up straight to the VR5. So again, very quickly I can get this together, get it in the car, get it running, confirm all this stuff, and then I can use the dimensions of all this, thickness of the adapter plate, specification and dimensions of this, and then I can go and get a single mass flywheel made with a triple plate or twin plate clutch to my heart's content, but knowing that all the dimensions work. And obviously as long as this configuration remains the exact same length as an uncut gearbox, then I can just use a factory standard ZF gearbox with my adapter plate once it's finally made, and it should all work the exact same as it works with this stuff. Clearly, once this is in the compact, because that's where it's destined, I'm going to put a GT3071 Garrett on it, so I should be able to get a reasonable amount of power out of this one, and then that can be my practice car. And then obviously I can use all the work that goes into that to help to develop the VR6. So that's kind of it in terms of an update on where we are and what we're doing next. Just I guess as a quick side note, for anyone who's interested, kind of this is how I kind of cut the bell housing on both these two gearboxes using this saw. So all I basically did was to mount the saw at 90 degrees to the base using these kind of uprights here. There's a bit of steel welded across these uprights, which basically is hold this level. So obviously once it's all bolted together, I know that that blade is completely parallel to that base. So obviously what I did was to put the BMW and VW gearboxes on there, rotate them around manually as the blade was spinning, and that basically just chopped around. And it did make quite a clean cut, I must admit, as you can see. I'm sure I've got a video of me doing that, so I'll just insert that here, but that gives you an idea. If any of you are, I guess, interested in doing something similar, that's how I did mine. Right guys, that's it for this video. As always, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed it, feel free to hit the like button, and if you want to see some more, hit subscribe. But I will catch up in the next one. Cheers, bye.